We're glad to have the head honcho here, so please welcome Ryan Ivey.
Thank you, Jeff, for those kind words. Certainly want to extend my sincere welcome and appreciation to all of you for being here today. What a great event this is. We have a saying in our athletic department, it's a great day to be a Gov, and certainly today is a great day to be a Gov. Before I go on, I want to go ahead and have our athletic department staff, so if you're a member of our athletic department staff or coaches, if you could stand real quick to be recognized, I would greatly appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for being here. And we talk about being a family a lot within our athletics department, and having our coaches and our staff here is really a big part of that moving forward. So I appreciate you guys being here. As we've talked about before, college athletics, and I was just talking to Mr. Aaron about it, college athletics provides the opportunity for us to change lives. And that's what we do. At the core of what we do every day is we have the opportunity to change lives for young people. We have a lot of first-generation college students that come to campus that wouldn't have the opportunity, wouldn't have the access to higher education if it were not for college athletics. So because of that, we have the great opportunity to change lives and change the course of families' history. So as our student athletes grow, and Jeff talked about it just a minute ago, that we have a great, great future ahead of us. The future of Austin Peay athletics is very bright, and it has to do with the great student athletes that we have here, along with our coaches and our staff members. But our future is only bright because of our past, okay? Because of the great people that have come before us. We have the opportunity through this event tonight or today to honor some great people who have come before us. And to these individuals to my left and to the Aaron family, certainly want to extend my sincere congratulations for everything that you guys have done. We are who we are today, and the foundation of who we are is because of the people that come before us. And it is my sincere hope and is my charge as the athletics director to make sure that our current student athletes and our future student athletes, along with our coaches and staff, understand that and take the responsibility of making this place better than when it was when we found it. And that's the goal of what we do. We want to make Austin Peay better tomorrow than it is today. And I know that our student athletes and our coaches and our staff embrace that mission. I encourage you guys, if you haven't had the opportunity to be back involved with Austin Peay athletics, I encourage you to do that. We have some great opportunities for you to be involved. But at the core of it, again, is to get back. I remember as a student athlete, the friendships that I've made when I was a student athlete at the University of Memphis, and some of those guys, some of my football players and teammates, are some of my closest friends today. I know you guys would probably echo some of the same sentiments. So if you haven't been involved with Austin Peay athletics in a while, we always invite you back. You are always welcome here, and we want you to be a part of it because the future is very bright here, and we want you guys to be a part of it. But again, the future is only bright because of our past. I encourage you to enjoy the day, enjoy the moment, and we look forward to seeing you tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ryan. We'll try not to repeat each other too much, but I do think it's important that on a day like today, when we're recognizing accomplishments of the past, we realize that the purpose of the Hall of Fame is to not only give appropriate recognitions for excellence, but it's also about building the traditions, the positive feelings, the future, the optimism about where we're going into the future. And without the foundation of the past, we can't possibly be successful in the future. So the Athletic Hall of Fame Selection Committee, and we are so fortunate to have such dedicated members of this committee that work very hard every year to try to identify, with the help of Sports Information Office here, identify appropriate candidates. And then it becomes, without the smoke-filled room. Lots of debate, lots of discussion, very, very tedious voting process. So if you're in for good reason. No flukes. I would like to introduce the members of the Hall of Fame Selection Committee, so if you would please stand as I call your name. And again, please hold your applause until I'm through. starting with Dr. Bruce Myers, Dr. Wayne Chaffin, Greg Walker, Sherwin Clift, Brad Kirtley. By the way, both Sherwin and Brad are in the Hall of Fame, as is Cheryl Holt, Carolyn Yarbrough, Larry Schmidt, Kyle Luther, I know Kyle could not make it this morning, Brandon Bueller, Bob Bible, another Hall of Fame inductee, Amy Corlew, who you heard during the invocation, David Luce, and Athletic Director Ryan Ivey. Now, in addition to this group, I also want to introduce Blakey Bradley. Blakey plays a very important role because it was really his drive, his concept that led to the creation of this honors category. And he'll talk, actually I'll talk a little bit about it, but the honors category basically was created about 4 years ago. And what it does is look back to students, coaches, and others who have been away for more than 50 years. Because it's not an even playing field when you're trying to compare athletes of this era to a previous era. And we have an inductee this morning from the 40s. And because of this honors committee, because of Blakey's work and his committee, then we're enjoying the fruits of their efforts as well. So thank you, committee members. The next introduction has really become what we as the Bibb family, again, I'm going to introduce myself again as Jeff Bibb, Chairman of the Hall of Fame Committee. We have now an annual tradition of recognizing a special student each year. So I would like to introduce our son, Sharon and my son, Landon Bibb, to do the honors for this year's recipient.
Good morning. As I stand up here before you, it gives me great honor to present this scholarship that is awarded in my grandparents' names, the Dr. Leon and Margaret Bibb Hall of Fame Endowment. I want to start off giving you a brief summary about Leon and Margaret. There are some of you who knew them, but I realize there are many of you who never got the chance to. Leon and Margaret Bibb came to Clarksville in 1952 when then President Howard Harville hired Dr. Bibb to chair the Industrial Arts Department. As a husband and wife team, the Bibbs contributed a great deal of themselves to their community, with their lives revolving around family, church, and this university. Whether it was distributing fruits and vegetables from their garden to neighbors and friends, making one of the many visits to the APSU athletic training room, holding forth in their Sunday school class, or making lifelong friends during their many overseas adventures. The Bibbs took a remarkably high personal interest in most everyone who crossed their path. They just didn't give a kind word here or there. Their sincerest interest and positive influence literally gave life-changing direction to many people. Leon and Margaret Bibb were such devoted fans to Governor's athletic events and were both involved in many other university-related alumni, academic, and social activities and organizations. But some of the highlights, and specifically of my grandfather, Dr. Bibb's tenure here at Austin Peay, include being the faculty chairman for athletics from 1955 to 1979. He was instrumental in leading APSU into membership of the OVC, elevating the athletics programs to NCAA Division I competition. He was inducted into the APSU Hall of Fame in 1984, and then he was also inducted posthumously into the OVC Conference Hall of Fame in 1999. This endowment perpetuates the Bibbs' desire to provide an opportunity for students to better themselves and allows the APSU Athletic Department to award financial assistance to one or more graduate level students. Due to the generosity of Dr. and Mrs. Bibb's friends, associates, and family members, the Bibb Endowment has grown to have a corpus of almost $115,000 and has awarded $31,000 to 21 deserving individuals. Our family is extremely proud and humble that this worthwhile endowment has grown to this level, and we thank the many of you that have contributed. We hope that one day we will be able to grow this endowment to a level where we can award a full 2-year student tuition, graduate student tuition. For the second year in a row, from the strength and conditioning program, our 21st recipient is Caitlin Smith. Caitlin came to the Peay by way of Virginia Commonwealth University, where she was a sports performance intern for 1 year. That is where she developed a love for her coaching and helping athletes reach their full potential. Before that, she completed her undergraduate degree from Logwood University, where she was a Division I field hockey player for 4 years and was a strength and conditioning intern her final year. The governor's strength and conditioning coach, Nick Hosnick, is quoted in regards to her character and work ethic. She is special and talented and is paving the way for women in the field of strength and conditioning. On behalf of the entire Bibb family, it is my honor to award the 2016 Dr. Leon and Margaret Bibb Hall of Fame Endowment to Caitlin Smith.
For allowing me to be the recipient of this scholarship. It's truly an honor. First, I want to thank Nick Honzik for his nomination and the support he has given me throughout this year. The growth I've experienced throughout my time here wouldn't have been the same without the amazing strength and conditioning staff that I work with. Also, I want to thank my professors in the athletic department for pushing me into not only growing as a professional, but also as an individual. Finally, I want to thank Dr. Leon and Margaret Bibb, his family, and the sponsors who made this and continue to make this scholarship a possibility. Without Dr. Bibb's commitment, not only to the university, but to his students, this opportunity wouldn't exist for me. Though I never had the pleasure of meeting him, I've heard nothing but amazing things about him. He was a driven and inspiring individual who wanted nothing more than to help students in need, to assist students in receiving the education they so greatly desired. And with this scholarship, he has been able to give that opportunity to many. I'm honored to be added to the list of the students who have stood out enough to be considered for such an award. Again, I just want to say thank you to all those involved in making this scholarship a possibility.
I do want to mention that the beginnings of this scholarship, and we do appreciate your willingness to allow this to happen during the Hall of Fame event. But Sherwin and Norma Clift actually were the original sponsors of this scholarship, for which we're so grateful. So Sherwin and Norma, thank you. A couple other thank yous before we get into the real purpose of the program. But that's recognizing those who really make this event happen. And it starts and maybe ends with Tara Pfeiffer. Tara, raise your hand. Most of us know you. Tara has an extremely hectic job, especially this time of year. Well, maybe not especially, but as you may be aware, we had a tremendous National Signing Day for football, and she is in the thick of that certification process right down to the wire. So she's definitely been under the gun. But Tara, we thank you for all you do for this committee and certainly for the university. I also want to recognize Colby Wilson. Colby, you want to raise your hand? You're getting ready to see. Colby's been under the gun too lately. But he is responsible for producing the videos that you will be seeing that helps summarize the careers of our deserving inductees today. So thank you both so much for what you do, as well as for the rest of the staff that supports this committee's efforts. What a class that we are inducting this year. we say that many times, but the statistical accomplishments, the academic accomplishments are collectively are somewhat off the charts. We have 12, between this group, we have 12 first team All-OVC. And that's not tournament, that's regular season. We have 2 OVC players or athletes of the year. We have 1 All-American. And then when you turn back the clock, we have in the fledgling Volunteer State Athletic Conference, we have 1 All-VSAC. So these are highly accomplished individuals. And it's such a joy, again, to be a part of this wonderful event each year. So to kick off our introductions, we will begin with video. We're going to tee that up, and you'll get to see some background information on Carrie Burgraff.
Definitely the complete package. Is a true student athlete. You know, she put her mind to anything, she was going to get it done, and whether it was athletics or academics. And when you have someone that brings that to the table, it just makes life easy for you.
Among the most decorated athletes in Austin Peay history, Carrie Burgraff exemplified everything Austin Peay stands for, both on and off the field of competition.
Carrie is really smart, and being her roommate, like, she would study and write papers, and you know, she always had her practice time, but then there was like, all right, I have to do homework at this time. And she would always just be so organized, and that she always knew, like, if she had a project that was due, say, a week of competition, like, she would get it done beforehand. Like, you know, if it was due on the Thursday before we left, she'd probably have it finished on like the Tuesday. Like, just always on top of it, and just hard work and determination.
She had a solid freshman year. She scored both indoors and outdoors. And then we got to the indoor season, and she no-heighted indoors. And we had set goals. I remember this. We had set goals, and she had written her goals down on a little tiny scrap. Looked like she had ripped off the corner of a notebook, piece of notebook paper. And she had written her goals on there. And that day, the Monday after she had no-heighted at conference at the OVC indoors, threw that scrap of paper on my desk, and she turned around and walked out. And from that day on, she was a changed vaulter.
Away from the track, the standout student became the only athlete in OVC history to twice earn the OVC Scholar Athlete Award, becoming the first junior with the requisite academic credentials to qualify, and remains the only 2-time winner of the Steve Hamilton Sportsmanship Award, based on her work both in the classroom and community.
She always strived to be the best she could be. She had by her lights in her room when she would walk in. She'd have her goals, what she wanted to do in a week, in a year, like by the end of the year, and in 5 years. And I always was just so impressed by that, because I was just had my light switch.
Her last year was just kind of a fairy tale ride. I think it was the culmination of all her hard work, both academically and athletically. She just was, the greatest comment I can say about Carrie Burgraff was she was an actual student of her event. She would go home and I would send her film of her jumps, and she would study them and come back the next day and say, hey coach, what about this? What about that? I need to work on this. And she really became a student. She was not only a great student in the classroom, she's a great student on the track as well.
And to introduce our first inductee for today, I'd like to introduce Doug Molnar, who's track and field cross-country coach here at Austin. Doug.
In 2006, the women's pole vault was fairly new. The NCAA had just introduced it a few years before that. And Austin Peay had exactly 0 history in the women's pole vault. That year in 2006, I'd signed a pole vaulter, and she was state champ. She was an Ohio State record holder. She had a personal coach, and somehow I tricked her, recruited her to come here, and I'm not sure why. We had no history. We owned 2 pole vault poles, and I had never really coached a pole vaulter. Sorry about that, Gary. But somehow I convinced her, this person to come, and she came, and I spent all spring looking for a training partner for her. I needed a training partner for her, so I looked all spring, couldn't find anybody to come. The last chance I had was the Ohio High School State Meet. It's one of the last meets in the country. It's in June. And I show up, and I go to the first meet, which is the Division I, which is the big schools. And they all turn me down, or they're all signed to go somewhere else. And I was like, well, I'll look at the Division II meet. I'll see what they have. I figure I've got a better chance. The athletes aren't seen by as many coaches. They're probably not quite as good. They're smaller schools. They haven't been seen by coaches, so maybe I have a chance to find a training partner. So what I do next, man, every time I go out recruiting, is I start mom stalking. And it's real easy to find out who that kid belongs to. Okay? They're the ones that are out there yelling the loudest, screaming the loudest. All right, Mrs. Burgraff, you're no exception. So I'm watching the meet, and I see this little ball of fire on the track, just a ball of energy. She gets on the runway. The first time I see her, she sprints down the runway, and it kind of looks like the running of the bulls in Pamplona. Okay? She just kind of flings herself up into the air, not the most graceful, and you saw it on some of those pictures there. She does the matador over the bar. Okay? That is not good pole vaulting. Okay? But Mrs. Burgraff does her great ole, and I figure, okay, there's my training partner. That's the one I want. So now, actually, I hate to tell you this, but I was rooting against you at that point. Because you don't want them to get too high and do too good, because then I got Ohio State and Indiana and Bowling Green and all the other schools next to me, and they're trying to recruit as well. So I'm secretly kind of rooting against her, but not rooting against her. But she does well. She gets on the podium. I convince her to come. And thank goodness her sister Megan and her come for the visit. Her parents can't come. They're busy. And anyways, I find out she is really smart. She's got like 4.0 in high school, and she's got like a 32 or something, 34 on the ACT. And not only is she fast, she's fearless, and she's smart, so I've got something to work with. She comes to school. We've got 2 pole vault poles. I've got 2 vaulters. This morning I sent 3 vaulters to Vanderbilt. We have 17 poles going with them. Okay? So we get there, and the way I convinced the first vaulter to come was I said, we can vault all year indoors. We've got an indoor place. So the first semester, we're outside all the time. It's cold, it's windy. And they're like, when are we going indoors? When we're not going indoors. Not yet, not yet. We'll go after break. Long time ago, there's a pole vaulter, All-American, NCAA runner-up, and they dug a hole up in the 3rd floor that they can vault in. I pull it open. There is literally a hole, and you can see the office down below. You can still see it to this day, you can see. So whoever's in that office, I'm sorry for the noise and the dust that comes down. But anyways, we put it in a box there. Now we have a batting cage in the way. Okay? This batting cage, I come up with this great idea. We are going to cut the batting cage. So I enlist Cedric McKinney. He lets me up in the catwalk. So I'm up 50 feet above the catwalk. I've got my assistant coach who's crying because it's 1 in the morning. We've been up there all night trying to do this. And we finally, my future beautiful wife there is Kim, and she's just like, cut the thing, just cut it. So once I've cut this thing, it's over. So Coach Luce, the next morning, I look out, and we've not been able to do this. I bought like 50-cent pulleys to kind of pull this thing up. It weighs 2,000 pounds. I'm no physics major. It's not going to work. So I've cut this thing, and then I look out my office, and I look over, and I see the physical plant is taking down the pole vault, or the batting cage. Jim Perrin, who's a softball coach, I call him because he's all worried about it. I say, hey, we're getting the new things. I talk to physical plant. They're going to remove it. You're going to get a new cage. and you're going to be good. He goes down and talks to Cheryl Holt. Cheryl knows nothing about it. She goes and talks to Dave. Dave says, I'm the athletic director. I'm always the last one to know. He calls physical plan. They don't know anything about it. We have this meeting. Not that Dave was in any big concern that night. We just had ESPN here, and we were playing Murray that night. He had some little things on his mind. So anyways, at the end of this meeting, everybody's pointing at everybody, and somebody from the physical plant says, all right, who cut the batting cage? I sheepishly raise my hand. I say, I did. He's like, how'd you do it? I said, hacksaw. He's like, impressive. He goes, all right, how much room do you need? I said, I need 4 feet. I need it moved over 4 feet. He says, no problem. He says, guys, take this back, go weld it, and we will move it over 4 feet, and everybody can vault. And as we're walking down the steps, Dave says to me, how many girls are we talking about? And I said, 2. And he says, 2? I said, that's all I need, Dave, is 2. He goes, I hope it's worth it. Dave, I'm glad to report it was worth it. 5 OVC championships, 3 NCAA berths, and academic awards. I could be up here another 20 minutes. It is my pleasure to introduce APSU's first female pole vaulter inducted into the Hall of Fame, Carrie Berggraf.
Well, I can't top Coach's stories. He's the best storyteller. First, I want to say thank you for that wonderful video, and to everyone who helped put it together, to Coach, to Whitney for being interviewed. That was great. Great way to reflect on my 4 years here. I'd also like to thank the selection committee for including me in this year's Hall of Fame class. It's such an honor to come back to campus and receive this recognition with family, friends, professors, and coaches present. It's also kind of surreal to have you all in one room because I feel like you made me the person I am today, and I'm forever grateful for that. Back in 2006, I never could have imagined that I would be here. As Coach alluded to, I'd been vaulting for a year and a half, was injured for a good portion of my senior season, and ended up getting healthy just in time for the state meet. To say that I was excited just to be there is an understatement. Then the unexpected happened. I got on a pole I had never been on before, vaulted a new personal best, and Coach Molnar approached me with a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, a 4-ride scholarship to pole vault in college. I was so excited, but I was a little bit concerned. It's like, Texas is a long way from Ohio. But once Coach assured me Austin Peay is in Tennessee, I was in 100%. During those 4 years, AP became my second home. I made some of my best friends here and got to be part of an amazing team. I'm lucky to have 3 of these friends here today, Whitney, Arian, and Jessica. These ladies made my experience at AP what it was. Trivia nights, trips to Casa and Submarina, the #1 team, which definitely didn't include Brandon, Jerome versus the world, and of course the many, many trips, Wendy's lunches, Super 8 stays. It's also hard to forget the freezing temperatures, downpours, the 1,000-year flood, blistering heat, and the wind, which was just part of our everyday life. So thanks for making those weekends so fun with you ladies. I also had amazing mentors. Several professors helped to guide my academic path. Dr. Canervo, who's here today, was chair of the poli-sci department and has since retired. He's enjoying the good life. He was by far my toughest professor. He was known for his class being impossible. I was told not to take his class. But he quickly became my favorite professor and my academic mentor. And after I took his intro to public policy class, I ended up pursuing political science, studying policy in grad school, and now I research education policy and write laws for a living. So I think it's pretty clear to see the impact you had on my life. Of course, I've also had amazing coaches throughout my whole life. Coach Keller and Coach Garcia both couldn't be here today. Coach Keller was the catalyst. He's my high school coach. He was a technician. If you needed to learn pole vault from someone, that's who you learned it from. And we even have a vaulter now who's Coach Keller's student. She's vaulting at Vanderbilt today, so good luck to her. And Coach Garcia, who always opened his facility to me, and I get to coach alongside him in Columbus now. I help out with high school vaulters there, so it's been great. And of course, I can't say enough about Coach Molnar. Besides being a very supportive coach, he's just a great guy. He drove all the way to Ohio and back in the same day just to see me vault at a meet because he had a hunch I was going to break 13 feet that day. And I did. We also kind of just got each other. We have similar senses of humor and interests, and while we bonded over our love of track, we became great friends. I remember driving back one night from a meet in the van, not the bus. It was probably around midnight after a long weekend of competition, and Coach Molnar was probably drinking a Red Bull, maybe eating a honey bun. And we were having a full-blown conversation about global warming, of all things. It's those conversations that stand out in my mind, even more than the actual vaulting. I still consider him a friend, and we catch up every year at the Ohio State track meet, which was 10 years ago this year. It's kind of crazy. I'm feeling old, so. And of course, I need to thank the most important people in my life. My family, who all traveled down from Ohio. Jack and Kathy, while only officially my mother and father-in-law for 2.5 years, have been part of my family since high school. Corey and I dated in high school and through college, so they've been around for a long time. I remember them coming out to the state meet to cheer me on, and Jack videotaping everything. The vaulting, the conversations, the interview with the newspaper. He even has a shot of me eating my Dippin' Dots after. Celebration. I remember it like it was yesterday, except it was much hotter and sunnier than it is right now, especially in Ohio. So thank you for always supporting me like a daughter. And to my mom and dad, who deserve most of the credit for my successes. They raised me to dream big, to go after my goals, and most importantly, to work hard. They told me I could do anything, and they did everything to support me along the way. They were at almost every home meet, which is a 7-hour drive from Ohio. They never missed an NCAA regional meet. You guys are simply the best people I have ever met, and I hope to grow up to be just like you. My sister Megan is also here today, and as my big sister, she's been someone I look up to. And not just because I'm short and she wears heels all the time, except today, when the role is reversed. She's a big reason why I'm here today, actually, because I wasn't going to run track my sophomore year of high school. But it was her senior year, and she insisted, we have to run on a relay together. I was a sprinter and a long jumper long before I was ever a pole vaulter, so it's like, all right, I'll run. So we ran that year together, and I discovered my true passion for the sport. We also set the school record in the 4x1, which still stands today, so mission accomplished. And now a huge thank you to my biggest supporter and my best friend, my husband Corey. Corey and I dated during high school and college, so he's been with me through this entire pole vaulting journey, as well as the process of growing up and becoming the people we are today. He went to college in Ohio, and because I couldn't travel home much due to competitions and practice, he came down and made the trek many, many times. And he only got a speeding ticket once in Kentucky, which if any of you have driven through Kentucky, you know that's a pretty big accomplishment. He also wins the Most Patient Award because he got to hear about pole vaulting all the time. The good, the bad, and he probably heard more about the ugly than anyone else, maybe even more than Coach Molnar. I'm pretty sure at this point he could probably teach someone how to pole vault just because I've talked about it so much. So thank you for supporting my obsession and for making it a priority in your life as well. Finally, I want to thank everyone in this room. I just want to say thank you for not only recognizing me, but for also recognizing the sport of track and field and women's athletics. Track holds such a special place in my heart. It's one of those sports I can't forget. When I'm walking into work on a spring day and the temperature's just right and the wind has that crisp spring bite to it, I think of track and I feel like I'm about to compete that day. It kind of makes you nervous, your palms start sweating, you know. I'm like, I'm just going to work, it's okay. When Corey and I go work out, we go up to the high school track and that smell of rubber does the same thing. You walk onto the track and you're like, it's okay, I'm just doing sprints to torture myself today, not for anything else. And when I coach my high school vaulters and I see them improve and make new heights, I fall in love with the sport all over again. It's not a glitzy or a glamorous sport. Like many traditional Olympic and female sports, there's not much money or fame to be had from it. As anyone who's ran track knows, Coach Molnar ran after college. It's not glamorous. But I love it, and I thank God for the athletic ability to have been able to compete at this level. So thank you again for this honor, for allowing me to thank those who have made it all possible. And please continue to support female athletics and Olympic sports. We need more die-hard fans like you football, basketball, baseball fans out there. We need you to come support us. Thank you, and as always, let's go Peay. My family and friends stand as well. Stay standing.
Thank you all for being here. So we want to officially welcome you into the Austin Peay State University Athletics Hall of Fame. Gary Bertrand. Congratulations. By the way, each inductee will be receiving a DVD of what you saw on the screen as well as of this event. So you will be able to take those memories with you. To present our next inductee, it's my pleasure to introduce Mike Johnson, former APSU volleyball head coach. Thank you. Thanks for the cue. We're going to watch the video. So cue up the video on our next inductee.
She was just a tough, gritty kid. And the awesome thing about that, she was a great player for sure. But what I thought really separated her and made her special was that she made the other people around her better. You know, she was a kid who didn't she didn't take much from anyone. And I love that about her. And when her teammates really weren't pulling their weight, she let them know. And she raised the bar for everyone else to be great around her. And so for as good a player as she was, I thought her impact was really felt on the people around her. And the fact that that team went on to winning the OVC and making the NCAA tournament the very next year, I don't know if that happens if not for Champ and really the mark she left on that team.
Stephanie Champine's arrival in Clarksville coincided with the beginning of the most successful 3-season stretch in Austin Peay volleyball history. In her 2 seasons, Austin Peay posted back-to-back 22-win campaigns for the first time in nearly 20 years.
She was a senior when I was a sophomore. So we kind of had a special bond there. It was just kind of always like I looked up to her because she was a senior and she was an upperclassman. So I kind of felt like one of these special chosen ones whenever Champ would be like, come on, let's, hang out outside of the volleyball court, things like that. But I mean, Champ always had like a very playful side to her, and I don't think a lot of people knew that, and they knew of her as an intimidating person. Just on the volleyball court, you see her as very eyes on the prize. But I kind of knew her behind the scenes a little bit, and that kind of helped me develop a relationship with her outside of volleyball.
People like to think that the most talented, the greatest players are just sort of born that way. And my favorite memory, it just will always stick with me, is we were repainting the lockers in the locker room one day. And she was in there painting her locker, and she was honestly horrible at it. And just watching how hard she kept trying and she wouldn't give up. People tried to take the paintbrush from her and she wouldn't let them do it. I saw then, just how important it was for her to get things right and how determined she was. There I could see the little girl that developed into a great player. I don't think she was born a great volleyball player. I think she worked really hard at it. I think it was difficult. I don't think it was easy. And that moment to me told me why she was great.
For her career, Champagne posted 893 kills and is one of only 5 APSU players with back-to-back 400-kill seasons. Her on-court determination and will to win helped shape the program during her time in Clarksville.
Well, what made Champ special is our sport has moved into an era of specialization. And you have the kid who can hit, you have the kid who can't hit, who plays in the back row. There are very few players who are good at everything. And Champ was a really good attacker. I mean, she was probably 20-plus kills almost every night that we played. And opponents knew that about her. They tried to stop her. They couldn't stop her. Everyone knew that she was going to get the ball. It made my job as a coach very easy because it was just kind of a no-brainer. I think you should give her the ball. But what made her special, in addition to her attacking, she was a great passer. She was an anchor in our serve receive. She was also a great defender. And so she was someone who, in baseball they talk about the 5-tool players. She was someone who could play the whole game.
Now, since I received a little coaching from Coach Johnson, I would like to now introduce Mike Johnson, who was former APSU volleyball head coach. He's traveled some distance from South Bend. He serves on the staff at Notre Dame these days. So thank you for being here.
First, I just want to congratulate everyone up here has been honored. It's a big honor. I want to congratulate the people up here who have been honored in the past. And I'm really honored myself just to be here. So I just want to leave it at that. But I want to start with the story of what Champ meant to me. And I remember arriving here. I was young. I had hair then, more of it at least. And coaches have a way of thinking that we know better. We just do. And I was young, and I thought I really knew. I really did. So I get here. We're going to have our first practice, and I'm fired up, and we're not going to waste any time. So we start practicing at 5:30 a.m. the next morning. Very first practice we ever had here, and I'm fired up. I spent all night on my practice plan. I'm ready to go. I have it all detailed out. And I get here, and it's dark out, and I don't have the key to this building. And I remember showing up, pulling on every door, going, oh, I didn't think about that. So our first practice isn't going to start on time, and as I'm running around the gun center here, trying to get every possible door open, I actually go sliding down that hill right there. I go face first down the hill. And I finally get the door open thanks to the police, and I'm covered in grass stains from my very first practice as a head coach. And I realized I need help. I didn't know as much as I thought I did. And so for me, as a first-time young head coach, it was a great privilege to have a great player who could basically throw the entire team on her back. And like I said in the video, it was a really easy coaching decision to go give it to her. Here's a timeout, we're going to give it to her. It really wasn't much education on my part. So just for me to have somebody to do that, somebody who could be very honest with me and tell me when I coached well and sometimes tell me when I didn't, I needed that, and I'm thankful she was here to do that. More so, I want to talk about what Champ meant to this team, though. And I know the team that she came into hadn't won as many games as the team she played on. And she played on a team that won a lot of games. When I was here, she played on a team that won more games. And then she graduates, and the following team goes on to win the OVC and go to the NCAA tournament. As I said on the video, I don't know that team wins if she wasn't there. She never played on that team. Actually, for as much as she loved the game, she played all spring with us. But she raised the bar in practice. She raised the bar competitively. She was a tough kid, had a lot of grit to her. And I thought that culture that carried forth with the team the following year, even though she wasn't here, Champ, I don't know if that team wins if you weren't there the year prior. And that's really what I think greatness is. It's impacting those around you and having a legacy for those that go beyond you. As I kind of think about Champ, and I alluded to it in the video, you know, coaches, I'll first say that her athletic accomplishments, there weren't enough. I could go here and read this program to you, and it wouldn't be meaningful to really who she is. And coaches have a way, you know, we just think we're the smartest people in the room sometimes, and coaches are always looking for these markers. You know, you have to be so tall or jump so high. Coaches always have these things going, what is it that's going to make a great player? And, you know, the NFL does it at the 40-yard dash, and how many times can you bench press. But if you look at the NFL, you look at the NBA, you look at Major League Baseball, we never project properly who's going to become great. And I think sports are actually littered with unpredicted greatness. And so what is it that made her great? What has made the rest of you great? And as I've seen it more, we like to think from the outside who just come to games that God made some of us better than others. And from knowing Champ, I'm going to tell you that isn't true. It isn't true. She's not the tallest kid I've coached. She's not the highest jump touch I've coached, but she's one of the best players I've coached. And what I've learned about her, which I think matters more than anything, Champ has a real strength of character. There's a passion for the game. She still plays it every weekend. She loved the game. She loved to prepare. She was willing to do the extra work no one else saw. That's what made her great. And really, that's the character of me and the rest of us as coaches. We look for her every day in every recruit that we meet. And so in closing, Champ, I just want to say for me personally, thank you. I know your teammates thank you, the school thanks you. I told you long ago on your senior night, I actually wrote it in your letter, I said history will remember you as one of the finest to ever walk these halls. And in this hall, you will forever be. I'm honored to thank you.
I'm so excited to be receiving this award. It's a huge honor. So thank you to everyone who's been a part of it. When I first started at Austin Peay, I would have never guessed that I'd be entering the Hall of Fame. So I'm so thankful to Coach Hazelwood and Lindy, who couldn't make it today, but giving me a shot, recruiting me, even though I was going to be coming in as a junior and not starting young with the team. I also want to thank my teammates. I mean, without them, this wouldn't have been possible. I mean, volleyball is such a team sport. So, I mean, we had great chemistry my junior and senior year with my team. They're also extremely hard workers, which is why they went on to go ahead and win the OVC. Also, thank you to everyone in the athletics department. I also want to thank my family. They also couldn't make it today, but they've always been a huge support system in my life. And my best friend, Jordan, who was able to fly out to Nashville with me, rented a Camaro for the weekend, and spending the weekend in Clarksville with me. And then, last but definitely not least, I want to thank Mike, not just for coming down here, which I know is taking a lot of time, he's probably busy recruiting, but also being the most influential coach of my whole volleyball career. Going into my senior year, I was kind of upset. We were getting a new coach, and I also kind of figured, you know, you can't really teach an old dog new tricks, is the way I looked at it, and I knew he had this whole different idea with volleyball. He's from California, everything was going to be faster paced, but I was completely wrong. I feel like Mike took my game to a whole different level, mentally and physically. I actually wished multiple times that I could have him another year, and I wished it wasn't my senior year. His passion and love for the game came out through his coaching, and he used to always, like during every practice, give us all these statistics. You remember those? I used to think it was so annoying when I was playing, but now looking back, he was 100% right, and I find myself now when I'm coaching repeating some of them. So thank you for all those. I really enjoyed my time here at Austin Peay, and will forever be grateful for having this opportunity and the wonderful coaches who helped me along the way and pushed me to be the best. Kind of like he said, I still play every weekend competitively in adult tournaments and everything else. I still have a huge love for the sport. So thank you, everyone. I really appreciate it.
Okay, tee up the next video. Please turn your attention to the monitors.
Rowdy Hardy is certainly one of the best pitchers to ever toe the rubber for the Governors. You have to consider Sean Kelly. And then you look at the guys that went on and did well in the majors, to include Jamie Cat Walker, George Sherrill, Matt Reynolds. But you have to put Rowdy Hardy up there with them. He got everything out of his body that he could possibly get out. He leads this program in terms of wins, a two-time All-American, an Ohio Valley Conference Pitcher of the Year. Everything he could give you, Rowdy Hardy gave you every time he took the mound. He made the Governors a better team when he was out there.
I just think his everyday routine, I mean, he would be ready to toe the rubber and just get after it. As soon as he stepped onto the field, I mean, he was ready to win, find a way to win. He knew how to execute his game and his pitches. Sometimes he didn't go just off of a scouting report of what a certain guy could or couldn't do, but he really focused on what his strengths were.
Well, for 3 years, Sean Kelly and Rowdy Hardy were teammates. And if you look at the career list for Austin Peay, you will see Sean Kelly and Rowdy Hardy leading in terms of career innings pitched and career strikeouts. 298 for Sean, 255 strikeouts for Rowdy Hardy. Rowdy Hardy, being the older of the two players, I think set the tone for Sean Kelly, who came along and followed in the footsteps. He could see what pitching was about by simply watching Rowdy Hardy.
A two-time All-American, Hardy and Sean Kelly were a dynamite 1-2 punch at the head of the Austin Peay rotation.
As far as those two go, I think they fed off of each other. They were, just competitive athletes, competitive baseball players, always wanted to, win and prove to be the best. But I think anybody within a pitching staff or even position players, middle infielders, you're competing against the next guy because you want to prove that you're better. So yes, they were teammates, but I think they were competitors to try and one-up each other sometimes.
We had such a great bond and friendship and a competitiveness that kind of drove us both to push each other. And we tried to set the tone by our example. And obviously he came in at a junior college and, had a little bit more established track record than I did. And I tried to just do as good or better than he did every time I went out. And I know he did the same, and it caused us both to just be so competitive, and I learned a lot from him about his mental aspect and competing, and he really taught me a lot just going out there and taking the ball and basically just wanting to finish every game he started. And I learned so much from just watching him go about his business his first year there, because I was still kind of developing into a college pitcher. So it was a tremendous friendship and bond that we had, and it was a pretty special few years.
Following his Austin Peay career, Hardy embarked on a 6-year minor league career, first in the Kansas City Royals organization, and then with the Atlanta Braves farm system, reaching the AAA level.
Rowdy Hardy stood out because of the way he went about his work on the mound. He was all business when he was out there. He got everything out of his body that he could possibly get out of his body pitching the baseball. He had pinpoint control, great slider, great changeup, and he could spot the ball whenever he needed to. When you're looking at gamers on the mound for Austin Peay, and you're assembling one of the best staffs that you can possibly assemble, you have to think about Rowdy Hardy.
So to introduce our next inductee, it's my pleasure to introduce himself, an APSU Hall of Fame inductee, former head coach, baseball head coach, Gary McClure.
Thank you. First of all, I want to say, Rowdy, it's a privilege to be here today, and an honor to introduce you to the Hall of Fame. Well deserved. I've been asked this a lot of times in the amount of time that I was here, and it's who was the best pitcher ever that you coached, and we've had some pretty good pitchers if you've seen us over the years. We had 9 OVC pitchers of the year. We've had 3 guys make it to the major leagues, several make it to the minor leagues, and are still working their way to the big leagues, hopefully. And I'm going to go out on a limb because Sean's not here today. He was going to be here, but something came up the last moment with getting to spring training. But I've been asked that a bunch, and I'm going to say that consistently over the long haul. Maybe not talent-wise or any of that, but the best pitcher that's ever pitched here for me when I was here is Rowdy Hardy, and that's saying something. Sean and Rowdy were inseparable. It was great that they were on the same team because they worked out every day and they pushed each other beyond belief. Everything that they did, they competed. I mean, these guys competed to see who could get dressed the fastest. I mean, they dressed the fastest. They competed everything. Every time they ran a sprint, they ran a mile. They competed, and it just made them both better. And they really did. They really just thrived off each other. But really proud of Rowdy. Coach Luke's taught me a couple things, and one of them was that I'm a lot better coach when I got good players, and I've never had a bad loss, or I've never had a bad win. I'm sorry, I almost blew that, Coach. No, but I did learn that I never had a bad win. I've had some ugly ones, but we never had bad ones, and. Rowdy won a bunch of games. I saw Rowdy, first time I ever saw him, I was at Middle Tennessee State, the TBCA All-Star game, and this 6'2", 6'3", really slender, I'll say, left-hander, walks out on the mound. He's going to be a senior the next year. It's in the summer, and he's got a great baseball name, Rowdy Hardy, and he starts pitching. He's throwing about 75 miles an hour, and I'm like, are you kidding me? And not that hard. But he's, he doesn't have great velocity. But I start watching him pitch, and it's like he's getting every guy out. And he's got a great changeup, and he's running it this way, and running it that way, and sinking it. And I'm like, man, I like this guy. I really like this guy, but he's throwing 75 miles an hour, or whatever. But anyway, I went on. We offered him a scholarship. And thought we were going to get him, and then Ole Miss came in and offered him a little scholarship, and then Rowdy, what a lot of people don't know, Rowdy made a 34 on ACT, which is pretty good. And they gave him an academic scholarship down there for nuclear physics or something like that. And so Rowdy went to Ole Miss, and they promised him, well, the next year we're going to put you on scholarship, baseball scholarship, so on and so forth. Well, they redshirted him. Rowdy didn't like redshirting. Rowdy likes to pitch. And so Rowdy left, and he went to Jackson State, pitched 1 year there. And we were all over him from day one, and we were able to fortunately get Rowdy to come to Austin Peay after that 1 year. So we were going to have him for 3 years. Last thing I'll tell you about that is Rowdy came on his visit, and I mean, he was a kid. He didn't have everything by any means, by any stretch of the means. Rowdy had to work for it, and he comes up to visit and gets out of his car, but he gets out of the rider's side. The driver's side doesn't even open. Okay, I'll never forget that. And but he had to reach across, crawl across, and get out of the car. But I felt like if he can endure that, I mean, he'll be all right. And I don't know what kids would do today if they had a car like that. But they got $50,000 sports utility vehicle. But anyway, we're very fortunate to get Rowdy here, and I've been honored to have 7 of my players go into the Hall of Fame, and they all have one thing, they all have four things in common, and Rowdy fits every one of them, and they all have unbelievable work ethic. You know, a coach doesn't need to be present for them to work hard. They work hard when coach isn't looking. They're all leaders, and they're all great teammates. And Rowdy was every one of those. I mean, he was a great teammate. He was always standing up, out on the front step, cheering everybody on, you know, whatever. It wasn't about him, it was about the team, and it was about winning. And, you know, you just love coaching guys like that. And, you know, he had fun, enjoyed the game, loved the game. And, you know, he's a great person as well. I always say people, and I was looking at this stuff a couple nights ago, and I mean, it's just amazing what he did here. It's amazing. It really is. I mean, people don't realize how good Rowdy is, how good he was, the magnitude of consistency that he, you know, with what he accomplished at Austin Peay, in the conference, and on the national level. And on the professional level, as far as that goes. The thing you got to remember is Rowdy was just here 3 years. Okay, a lot of the people in the record books at Austin Peay were here 4 years. Okay, but just to give you an idea, just a few things here. He was the ace of our staff every year, 3 years, and 2 of those years we had Sean Kelly, who's in the big leagues right now, and we had Matt Reynolds in the big leagues right now. I didn't even have to show up. I mean, you know, I got Rowdy Hardy and those two pitching. All I could do was screw things up. You know, they were great to coach. He was great to coach. I don't think it was any coincidence that we won two conference championships in his 3 years here. Probably would have won 3, but we about got our whole team hurt his last year. He had 32 wins in 3 years. Unbelievable. He had 12 wins 1 year, which is a school record in a year. He had 11 the next. He only had 9 his third year. I mean, he's the only pitcher ever to have 10+ win seasons in a row. Just unbelievable. He led us in ERA in 04, 05, and 06. His career, he's 7th of all time with a .271 ERA in 3 years. And the 6 guys ahead of him were pitching against wood bats back in the day. You know, Rowdy was facing, when he pitched here, it was the hot bat era. They've calmed him down a bunch since, but it was the hot bat era, and he did this. He's 2nd in strikeouts in a season with 96, and he was 3rd in strikeouts in a season in 05 with 91. He had 255 Ks, as they said earlier. The only guy that had more was Sean Kelly, but again, Sean Kelly pitched 4 years. Rowdy Hardy pitched 3 years. And so, I mean, you got to remember that. He had 1 year he had 8 complete games, the most ever by anyone. In a career, he had 19 complete games. So that means we just sent Rowdy out there, and we coaches, we just sat back and watched and let him do the deal, and went and shook hands. And he was third. He was 3rd in that again, but it was 3 years. The people that are ahead of him pitched 4 years, and they're not very far ahead of him. Rowdy was newcomer of the year his first year here. He was twice named first team all-conference. The other year he was 2nd team all-conference. He was a 2-time, he was a OVC pitcher of the year. I'm sorry, he was the OVC pitcher of the year 1 time. And he was a preseason All-American 2 years. He was a 2-time All-American 2 years. He signed with the Kansas City Royals. He pitched for the Royals in the organization. His first 2 years with the Royals, he was the pitcher of the year in their organization. He made it to AAA with the Braves, got released, called me to say he wanted to coach. I made a call to a guy, a friend of mine that was coaching somewhere, and it just worked out perfect. And he's coaching there now at New Mexico Military Institution. He's a pitching coach there. And, you know, it's phenomenal what he did here, and you know, I can't say enough about him. He's a great guy. He's a great family man. He's got 2 little kids. One of them's name's Inning, by the way. And but enough said. A true Hall of Famer and a man I love and respect. I want to introduce Rowdy Hardy.
Main reason I'm standing up here today is obviously Gary McClure. Sorry, I'm a little out of my element. I'm used to wearing a ball cap and talking to 18-year-olds. I'm used to people actually being to understand what I'm trying to talk about. But no, one of the main reasons I'm here obviously is Gary McClure. Recruited me in high school. Then when I made the wrong decision, it stuck with me back in JUCO and I ended up coming here. So one of the main things I regret is I only spent 3 years here instead of 4. Not bad, sorry about that. No, it's very honored to be up here. You know, obviously Sean beat me to it. You know, I'm forever tied with him. Obviously you hear a lot of his name than mine. He beat me, kind of aggravated me a little bit, but now, you know, we were talking, you know, a couple weeks ago when he called me. I was like, yeah, finally I got you. So, no, it was fun. This is one of the most special places I've ever been a part of. So Caleb Mitchell, who's sitting right here, he was my first ever recruit I called when I was coaching from Tennessee. First guy I ever signed. Ended up still one of the best players I've ever signed. It was Jake Peterson's fault, by the way, that he ended up in New Mexico. He told me about it. But when he was going through his recruiting process and he was like, kind of talked about Austin Peay, he was like, well, what'd you do? And I was like, it was the best place I ever played baseball. You know, in all the places I could play, 30-odd states, I don't know, hundreds of guys, probably a couple future MLB Hall of Famers that I played with. This was the one place I had the most fun doing. It was always the one place that I came back. This was home to me for 3 years. Still is. So this is absolutely incredible that I can do this today, that y'all awarded me this. Thank you. All my accomplishments, I firmly believe in baseball that pitchers don't have a whole lot to do with the game. I throw it and then so much is out of my control. It's out of my control. I'm very emotional with my hands. It helps. 18-year-olds, I'm telling you, if I don't do this, they wander. Stick one in my pocket. It's all supporting. So once I throw the ball, I have no control over it, right? So Jake Peterson, you saw in the video, was my second baseman for 2 years, and I don't know how many 4-hole hits he took away where he caught it glove side and did that little signature spin and threw it to first base. He probably saved me about 50 earned runs. You know, obviously I never hit it, so my offense scored a lot of runs. I got wins. Okay, I had one of the best catchers in my mind that I ever played with in Tommy Smith. Unbelievable, and I'm sorry, Mac, I know you tried to call pitches, but Tommy called his own game. He caught, I mean, that guy literally caught, I think, almost 98% of my innings that I threw. I remember the one time he was beat up so bad, couldn't hardly walk. Mac asked me if he could take him out of the game. He asked my permission to take Tommy out of the game so Chris Key could catch me. I was like, manager, you know. But so many of those guys that I played with, Matt Ledbetter was our shortstop, phenomenal person, phenomenal player. I got so many of them. Pete, who's over there, Chris Pointer, Chris Hyde, our first baseman, Jacob Schroeder, Raphael Hill, who ran a 5.960 or something like that, Will Hogue, who was a freak athlete, Brett Luther was a right fielder, Jared Walker, who's one of the best hitters ever to come through here, was one of our third basemen. Obviously Sean and Matt Reynolds, they're the reason that, you know, I was used to, once I got to pro ball, I got in Kansas City and Atlanta organizations, I was literally the slowest guy in spring training every year. Slowest thrower. Yeah, I was topping out like 80, 81. But because I had two of my roommates who I eventually, I told my agent this one time, he asked me about Sean, I was like, he beat me to the big leagues. Those two guys that were on our staff, that were my roommates, that were big leaguers, they were the reason that when I got to pro ball, it was okay. Seeing a 17-year-old Dominican guy throwing 102, and I didn't care. Like, I'm still gonna get that guy out more than you are. But those two guys are the main reason. Sean's a better athlete than I'll ever imagine to be. Reynolds is 6'11" or something. Those guys were far and away more talented than me, which aggravated me, which was the reason that I started the first game, because I wasn't going to let them do it, you know. Devin Thomas, number one of our pitchers, Jeff Malt, who could throw it out from home plate over center field, Brad Daniel, Ben Weshar, Tommy Smith, who I mentioned. All those guys, you know, I truly feel that it's not me going in, it's all of them. Because without those guys, I wouldn't be here. My family who is here, my wife, Megan's dead. I've always been lucky to be surrounded by better athletes. My wife, obviously much better athlete than I was, played softball at Kentucky before transferring here. Had I not come here, I would have never met her. And my son would be named anyway. Her idea, by the way. My two kids, any of you beacon right here, y'all can thank me later for that. It's on the walls. My two sisters, Jessica and Erica. In-laws, other in-laws. There's so many people, you know, when you're 18, 19, 20, 21, we never think about where we are, who's around us, and the experiences that will forever change us. But all of those brought me here, good or bad, to this spot right now. And I'll never forget it. Thank you.
Great pleasure to welcome the newest inductee into the Austin Peay Athletic Hall of Fame, Rowdy Hardy. We talked a little bit about the honors category and how that came about, and now it's time to view a video to introduce this segment of the program.
He was a jumper. He was a leaper. He was a leaper. There's no doubt about that.
The purpose we had set up this committee was to go back and look at athletes who, as you say, fell through the cracks. And I think a lot has to do with the history, not the knowledge of their playing days is not on the forefront. And many of the people who are part of the committee. And Paul Aaron's name it kept coming up as we looked at it, and so we dealt in it some more and felt like that he had been overlooked. Like I say, when you go back and Aaron identifies the top 10 players he coached, and that was from 1946 until 62, 63, Aaron Paul is one of those that he listed in his top 10, so that's a credit to him.
He was so good in every sport that it came so natural to him. I think that he just took it for granted. He was good in golf, he was good in tennis, he was good in basketball, handball, racquetball, swimming.
Yeah.
Everything he did, he excelled at in athletics.
The younger brother of legendary coach Dave Aaron, Paul Aaron helped shape his brother's legacy, with the Governors going 56-27 during Paul's 3-year basketball career.
I was told that he was given the name Slick Aaron because of his ability to handle the basketball, his passing ability. Back in the 40s, generally teams ran a 3-man weave out front, hit the high post, and then broke off the high post, split the high post on the breaks. And it said that Aaron slipped in at the high post, and they would pass it to him, and then the ball, he would take the ball. He could handle it like a quarterback does in football, where you fake the one guy coming through one way, hand off to the guy coming back through the other way, or he may fake the one, fake the other, then take the ball and throw over his shoulder to the first guard that had broken through, and would catch people off guard with his ability to pass it and handle the ball. So he gained the name Slick Aaron because of that.
I think it was Father Ryan, because they thought he was so slick on the basketball court. And all the guys had nicknames, and that's what I remember him talking about.
Yeah, that's probably.
Slick Aaron's legacy was secured in the 1949 VSAC championship game against Lincoln Memorial. Down by 5 with less than 4 minutes remaining, Aaron helped the Govs mount a late rally and hit a one-hander in the final minute to give Austin Peay a 51-49 victory.
He was might say the hero in the BSAC championship game, which Austin Peay won its first conference championship in 1949, when he hit the winning basket right at the close of the game, and he was selected. And from that, he was selected as all tournament.
There's no doubt there's something magical about the Aaron name when it comes to Austin Peay athletics. What a legacy. Before I introduce our presenter, I want to take a moment and just introduce our old and close dear friend, David Aaron. So David, we're delighted to hear from you. So the next person to be introduced is doing double duty. Not only is he presenting, he will be accepting in behalf of his father. My privilege to introduce Mark Aaron.
Hi, everybody. I'm the oldest son of Paul Aaron, and I'm here on behalf of my brothers and sisters, Lance, Steve, and Linda, their extended families, and my cousins and their families. I would like to thank Austin Peay State University for this honor, and I would like to thank the selection committee in particular for honoring my father. I'd very much like to spend my time up here regaling my father's days at Austin Peay, but since I wasn't born until 1955, I'm unable to do that, and I'm going to focus on who my dad was after he married my mom, and his career as physical education director of the Nashville Jewish Community Center. This Hall of Fame honor has made me think about one's legacy. How do you distill a life into a few sentences or a few adjectives? Who is Paul Aaron? Well, first and foremost, he was a teacher, an educator who taught by example. He was a gifted athlete who loved golf. He was a steadfast father who did the best he could. Character traits I've heard attributed to him include warm, personable, a man's man, a reserved man, a hard ass, inspirational, and fair. Dad had a strong sense of fairness, of right and wrong. And I believe that that character trait informed his teaching style and his work with young people and his colleagues and his politics. My father was an early supporter, an early strong supporter of the civil rights movement. As a teacher and high school basketball referee, he did not play favorites. And I would like to think this sense of fair play extended to his daily round of golf with his buddies at McCabe. Although I can't be sure of that because I've always heard that golf is a game where the ball lies poorly and the golfers lie well. Anyway, athletics was in his DNA, and it came easy for my father. Of course, he worked hard to master the specifics of each sport. Gosh, I can't even hear myself. He was a strong swimmer and a good tennis player, excellent basketball player, excellent handball player, and did I mention he enjoyed golf? He was so good at golf, he won the Capital City Open one year in Nashville. We all followed in my father's footsteps, my sister to a lesser extent. In fact, I'm wearing his shoes tonight as an honor. He wore something called ripple toe shoes, and he liked the ripple, actually they're called ripple sole shoes, and I'm wearing his shoes tonight to honor him. So we followed in his footsteps, me and my brothers, and we still play sports, and we're still competitive in our later years. The only fatherly advice he ever gave me was, when you're looking at yourself in that mirror every morning shaving, be okay with who you are and be okay with what you're setting out to do that day. My father never made a lot of money, never drove a nice car, but he worked every day and he put food on the table, and he wasn't office bound. He didn't have to yak on the phone all day, which would have killed him. He lived on his own terms, and he ended up, as a consequence, inspiring hundreds of young people over the years in his 33 years at the Jewish Community Center. My friend Marty Levine remembers Dad as someone who championed the underdog. He reminded me of Dad befriending the JCC outcasts. There was Sherman, the extra-large Jewish fellow who went to the JCC every day and was made fun of every day, unless Mr. Aaron was around. And there was one time when the boys were picking on Sherman and teasing and mocking him in the locker room. Dad was in his office next door, and he hears the yelling and screaming. And he ran over to find Sherman red in the face and out of control. He lifted both boys up and hoisted them against the lockers. He grabbed them, and they were choking to death. And Dad said, "Okay, Sherman, put the boys down." And he invited Sherman over to his office for a Coke and some goobers. And that was crisis averted. The other outcast was a wiry, thin, talkative Morris Lipschitz, who also would be designated disabled or emotionally handicapped today. Morris enjoyed engaging Dad in whatever game was about to be played, whatever boxing match was scheduled. Morris knew obscure stats and numbers and odds of who was going to be victorious at what. My father could care less, being more of a player than a spectator. But Dad made Morris feel important as he listened and engaged in whatever crazy theories Morris put forth. They cajoled and joked and poked fun at each other and put each other's teams down with great enthusiasm. I couldn't understand it at the time, but that was Dad. And whatever it was, it broadened his humanity. It made him accessible. Every Jewish fellow I see around my age has a story about Dad at the JCC. Maybe my dad would have preferred being a professional golfer. Maybe he would have been happier and more challenged if he had gone to medical school. Only me and my brothers and sisters will ever be able to guess if that's true. But his influence and character certainly outlived him, and perhaps that's more important in the greater scheme of things. Thank you. Sisters, Lance, Steve, and Linda, their families, my nephews, of course Dave, Aaron, his sister's husband Rob, and her son John, and my cousin Bill, his wife. I think we're all represented pretty fully here.
So Mark and the Aaron family, it is a privilege indeed to induct into the Austin Peay Athletic Hall of Fame. All Aaron. So to close us out today, I'd like to introduce once again Athletic Director Ryan Iden.
Thank you, Jeff. Again, one more time, let's give a big round of applause to all of our recipients for today. I mentioned earlier in my comments that Austin Peay Athletics, and at the core of what we do is we change lives. I think today you heard a little example of what it's like to be a student athlete here at Austin Peay State University, and about how lives are changed by being here. That is something that is very, very special to what we do. And I know it's very, very special to you guys that are out there and to our coaches and staff. We have a lot of great things going on here. And we are excited about the future, and we're excited about many more years of inducting well-deserved and well-qualified recipients into the Athletics Hall of Fame. I would like, at this time, like to go ahead and recognize Tara Feifler again. Tara, thank you so much for all your work and efforts that you did for this day. Colby Wilson as well. Colby, thank you so much for all your work and efforts that you've done today. Jeff, I want to go ahead and recognize and thank you guys and your family for your continued support of Austin Peay and the Athletics Hall of Fame here. So thank you so much. We invite you guys back tonight. Our men's and women's basketball team are playing beginning at 5:15 against UT Martin. We will be recognizing these individuals again. So we invite you back. We want you to be here. If we can do anything for you in the meantime, please don't hesitate and let us know. We are here for you guys. And as always, let's go Peay. Thank you so much.